Good morning, church. Oh, that was pretty pathetic. We got to try that again. Good morning, church. There it is. It is so great to be back with you guys. Sherry and I had such a great time in South Dakota this last week, and the weather was just fantastic. But we truly did miss being with our church family. I'm thankful for Mike that was able to lead music for me last week, but it is just good to be home, good to be back with my church family. So I've been looking forward just to exalting the name of Christ with my church family and just fellowshipping with you guys. So it's just a great time. So as we begin our service, we're going to sing a very familiar song, Sooner Count the Stars. It basically just says that no praise is high enough, no thanks is deep enough to sing your praise or to tell of all that you've done. And so as we declare that truth to God and to exalt the name of Christ, let's go ahead and stand, and we're going to lift our voices as a congregation. Sooner count the stars than number all your ways, though I only know in part, that part exceeds all praise. As sunlight fills the skies, your goodness fills my life. For all your precious gifts, receive my gratefulness.
Fathom all your love like a never-ceasing stream. Our mercies through your Son, the death of Christ alone deserves eternal song. For such a love as His, receive my gratefulness.
No praise is high enough, no thanks is deep enough, no life is long enough to tell of all you've done. And no shout is loud enough, no words are strong enough, no song is sweet enough to sing your love. Sooner turn back time than turn your heart away. Though the years go fleeting by, your mercies never change. Before you made the sun, your love was set on us. For all your faithfulness, receive my gratefulness. And no praise high enough, no thanks is deep enough, no life is long enough to tell of all you've done. And no shout is loud enough, no words are strong enough, no song is sweet enough to sing your love. No thanks is deep enough, no life is long enough to tell of all you've done. And no shout is loud enough, no words are strong enough, no song is sweet enough to sing your love. You may be seated.
Good morning, Riverside. I wish I could be with you today on Father's Day. We are at a family camp and having a great time, just seeking the Lord together. But I wanted to share with you why I have this picture in my office. This picture was taken on my dad's last Father's Day, and I made an effort to be with him his last Father's Day. We didn't think it would be his last, but it was a celebration that he had beaten cancer, at least we thought. And he started crying because I surprised him. It was in the evening. I left right after church. It's been hard for me over the years to make it on Father's Day, and I'm so glad I made this one. And I just share that with you because the Lord had put on my heart a scripture passage, and it's in 2 Timothy chapter 4, where Paul says to Timothy, make an effort to come before winter. And in the same chapter, Paul also tells Timothy that he has fought the good fight. He's in prison. I think he knows that this is getting towards the end of his life. And so he tells Timothy, make an effort to make it before winter, Timothy. I want to spend time with you. I want to fellowship with you. And so I want to encourage you, put the people in your life that are closest to you, your family members, on the front burner. Make them a priority, especially your family, your parents. Honor them. There may be some tension between you and a family member. Don't let that go unsettled. Work through it. Forgive. Look for the good that they have done in your life over the years. Choose to be thankful for the good instead of focus on the bad. Spend time. Put them as a priority in your life over your own agendas and your own busyness. Life gets busy, and so I just want to encourage you to do that and have a great Father's Day and a great time with your family today. Blessings, and we'll see you in a week.
So we keep Pastor TJ and everybody that's going to this family camp in our prayers, and just pray that they would have a great time of fellowship and diving into God's Word together. I do have a few announcements for you. First of all, Dean Roth wanted me to pass this along to you guys. He says his brother DeVere passed away on Friday at noon, and the funeral will probably be at Gridley's Salem Mennonite Church on Tuesday. And so he would appreciate your prayers. I know that he has that DeVere had a wife named Juanita. Was that her name? Yeah, Juanita was her name. So just pray for her as well, just for comfort, the whole family. So just lift them up in your prayers. I also want to remind you that there is no meal after this service. Because of Father's Day, we typically don't do it on holidays like this, just because we want people to be able to spend time with their families. And so I want to invite you to go and spend time. If you are able to be with your father, just go spend time with him and just enjoy the fellowship there. So it is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. It's such a great time, and I think we can probably all agree that one of the biggest problems in our culture is the fact that maybe not most, but a lot of fathers are not in the picture these days, and that's probably one of the main problems. One of the main reasons why our country is the way it is because fathers just have not been present, and so it is so important for fathers to be present in their family's life. And so we're just thankful for all you fathers out there that are part of your family's life. We just want to say Happy Father's Day to you. We made an attempt to get all the gifts here, and there was no reason that we should have expected them not to be here. Sheila ordered them many moons ago, and so they should have been here, but unfortunately, because of some delivery issues and some back ordering issues, they did not arrive on time. So we do not have the Father's Day gifts for you this week, but they should hopefully be here by next week. So if you are a father, you can come back next week. That's just another incentive for you guys to come back next week and get your gift. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. But we do have some cookies for you back there. So yeah, make sure you go grab some cookies. And one thing that we always do for Mother's Day and for Father's Day is we honor the oldest father and the youngest father. And so we're going to begin with the oldest father. And so what I'm going to have you do is, if you have been a father for, let's say, 30 years, maybe. If you've been a father for 30 years, stand up. Okay. Yeah, Kathy, sit down. Okay. If you've been a father for 40 years, stand up. All right. If you've been a father for 50 years, stand up. All right. We still got Walt's over here. We got Doug. We got Terry. We got Dean. Okay. If you've been a father for 60 years, stand up. Okay. Yeah. We got Walt and we got Dean. Okay. If you've been a father for 70 years, stand up. Okay. All right. We got Walt back here. He's the winner. What a great testament of faithfulness and just being there constantly in your children's lives. So we thank you, Walt, for that example that you've shown us. Okay, now for the youngest father. So let's start at 5 years. If you've been a father for 5 years, we're going to work our way down. All right. If you've been a father for 5 years, go ahead and stand up. 5 years or less. Okay. If you've been a father for 4 years or less. So if you're... Well, that didn't work like I thought it would. Oh, Jacob. Okay. Jacob, there we go. Jacob wins the prize. Thank you, Jacob. See, there's a reason that TJ usually does this kind of thing, because I'm just going to goof it up. Okay? And so along that same lines, Sherry and I had just had a great time on our trip to South Dakota with my family. It was me and Sherry and my mom and my dad and my sister, brother-in-law, and my nieces and nephews, and we just had such a great time. But one thing one of our main goals there was to discover something, and we wanted to make a little bit of an announcement to you guys. So if you want to go ahead and put up that picture for me, John. Riverside will be adding a new member to its congregation in November of this year. We have Emery June coming to us in November, so we're very excited. No, I'm not celebrating that yet. So anyway, we're just so excited to share that with you. We've been kind of holding on to that for quite a while. The story, Sherry will have to tell you the story because it's a long story, but it's just a story of God's faithfulness, God's timing is always perfect, and I've been trying to preach that to Sherry all the time, and it's tough. She needs it more than I do, but God's timing is always perfect. To make a long story short, we did experience a miscarriage. We were trying to conceive for probably 1.5 years, 2 years that we were trying to do that, and just never happened. And then when it did happen, we experienced a miscarriage, and so we were just really confused, really frustrated, but I was just always preaching that God's timing is always perfect, and God has reminded us of that time and time again. And so this next song that we're going to sing is called I Will Follow, and it just talks about praising God in the good times and praising God in the not-so-good times. Even in the storms, I'll follow you is what it says. I believe everything that you say you are, and just... For those of you that are just going through the great times, you can praise the Lord, but also for those of you that are going through some not great times, you can still praise the Lord. He is worthy of all of our praise and all of our affection and all the glory that we can give him. So no matter what you're going through, you can still praise the Lord. He's still faithful. His timing is always absolutely perfect. So as we continue on, as we sing this song, I'm going to invite you guys to go ahead and stand with us again, and we're going to sing. when the sea is calm and all is right, when I feel your favor flood my life, even in the good I'll follow you, and even in the good I'll follow you. And when the boat is tossed upon the waves, and when I wonder if you'll keep me safe, and even in the storms I'll follow you, and even in the storms I'll follow you. 'Cause I believe everything that you say you are. I believe, and I have seen your unchanging heart in the good things and in the hardest parts. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. And when I see the wicked prospering, and when I feel I have no voice to sing, and even in the want I'll follow you, and even in the want I'll follow you. 'Cause I believe everything that you say you are. I believe, and I have seen your unchanging heart in the good things and in the hardest parts. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. And when I find myself so far from home, and you lead me somewhere that I don't want to go, even in my death I'll follow you. Even in my death I'll follow you. And when I come to win this race I've run, and I receive the prize that Christ has won, oh, I will be with you in paradise. Oh, I will be with you in paradise. Yeah. 'Cause I believe everything that you say you are. I believe, and I have seen your unchanging heart in the good things and in the hardest parts. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. 'Cause I believe everything that you say you are. I believe, and I have seen your unchanging heart in the good things and in the hardest parts. I believe and I will follow you. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. Oh, I believe and I will follow you. I'll follow you. How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss, The Father turns his face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory.
Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished.
And I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom. But this I know with all my heart: his wounds have paid my ransom. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand pardon for sin, and a peace that endureth. Thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. You may be seated. And we have a very special guest with us this morning, bringing the message. And you'll have to forgive me for being on my phone, but he texted me the introduction for him, so I just want to read it from there. Andrew and Janae Gonnerman, missionaries that we support that are in Japan, are here to share their ministry and just give us kind of an update of what's going on. So Andrew and Janae Gonnerman are missionaries in the suburbs of Tokyo, Japan, with Baptist Mid-Missions. They have 3 children, Jonah, Isla, and Josiah. Andrew grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and Des Moines, Iowa. Janae grew up in southern Illinois. So it is our pleasure to welcome Andrew and Janae Gonnerman up here.
Good morning. I'm going to admit I'm always a little nervous when the pastor has a big announcement while we're here. So congratulations. I'm glad it was good news. But we are the Gonnermans, and we serve in Tama, Tokyo, which is in the western suburbs. And as we go to Japan, a lot of people always ask, well, why Japan? It's a first world country. You can get pretty much anything you want there. Why go to Japan and not somewhere like Africa or South America? And as we think about Japan, there we go. 1 out of 333 people, or 0.33%, consider themselves evangelical Christian. And there we go. I'm having trouble with the clicker.
The average age of a pastor in Japan. Can you hear me?
No. There we go.
The average age of a pastor in Japan is between 60 and 70 years old.
It seems like the clicker's not working, so I'll just kind of point for you if you can advance it. Point that way.
There's something.
There. Okay. It's not working.
You need the magic touch.
He'll just stand up here and do it for us the whole time.
You just kind of have to raise it up here like this.
Up there, okay.
Maybe.
Hey, we'll just part the Red Seas. Okay. So, also, they say that there's one missionary for every 65,000 people in Japan. And so Japan is a place that needs the gospel. We need missionaries. We'd like to talk about how God brought us to this part. You can get it. Okay. We'll let her. I just can't run it today. So I grew up in a Christian home, and every time the church doors are open, my family was there. But I learned at an early age that it wasn't attending church. It wasn't hearing sermons that got me right with God. And so at an early age, I put my faith and trust in Jesus, that his death on the cross paid for my sins, and that his resurrection gave me a sure hope that I could live eternally with him. I was then baptized a few years later.
I also grew up in a Christian home down by St. Louis, and my parents took us to church. They also were faithful to teach us in the home about who God was, and it was at an early age that I also accepted Christ as my Savior and was baptized a few years later.
Oh, there you go. And so I grew up learning to serve in church and just doing whatever needed. It was a small church, and I learned early that if I didn't get help out, things didn't get done. And so I learned how to serve. And then in high school, I didn't want to study German, French, or Spanish, but my school offered Japanese. And so I started studying Japanese, and we moved from Omaha, Nebraska to Des Moines, Iowa. That school also had Japanese. And I didn't realize how rare that was, but God did.
I wanted to study Spanish in high school, and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to be a Spanish teacher. But when God led me to a Bible college that didn't have a Spanish teaching major, he allowed me to be part of a program called Ariba, where I spent 11 months working with missionaries in Peru, learning what it was like to be a missionary and seeing firsthand that it was a lot of the same of what I had done in the States. In my church, they taught me about teaching in children's ministries, helping with music, cleaning up after church, and just loving people.
And so while she was in Peru with learning to be a Spanish-speaking English teacher, I was then studying to be a pastor. I knew I wanted to serve God, and so that's the path I was going, but I had the opportunity to go to Japan on some missions trips. And I thought, well, I can serve God and see Japan, where I studied the language. And so I went. And I really enjoyed going, but I wasn't too sure about the missions.
As he was getting ready for his second trip, we were dating, and I remember seeing his excitement for going back to Japan and the missionaries that he had served with there. And I asked him, now, you don't think that God wants you to be a missionary to Japan, do you? Because I love Hispanic people, and God's trained me in Spanish, and all of these opportunities that I have lead me to believe that I think I would minister with Spanish-speaking people. So if you think that you want to be a missionary to Japan, that's great, but I don't think this is going to work.
And I said, no, God's not leading me to be a missionary in Japan. What he's leading me, and maybe us, to be is a missions-minded assistant pastor. So we would work with the youth group or help out of the church, and we'd lead missions trips to places like Peru and Japan and other places that the church supported missionaries. And she thought that was a great idea. And so in 2012, we were married. And after we were married, we started looking for a church where we could do that. And I actually had a phone interview with a church that it looked like it was going to fit really well.
And after he got off the phone with the pastor, he checked his email, and he had an email from the missionaries, Pastor and Mrs. Mita, where we had served, or where he had visited in Japan, asking us to consider coming to Japan for 6 months to a year to help them start English ministries in their church.
And I thought to myself, no. Because we had this great interview, and things are looking good here, and we can't just go to Japan. But the thing is, if you're going to say you're missions-minded and God gives you an opportunity for missions, you at least have to pray about it. So we did. And then we started getting our pastor involved, and we started getting other mature Christian friends involved, and eventually we came to the point of, no, we think God does want us to do this.
We served for a whole year at Iwatsuki, Bethel Baptist Church in Iwatsuki, Japan, and we loved the people, we loved the culture. We said that if we were going to be missionaries, Japan would be where we would go. But we didn't know if we wanted to be missionaries or not.
And so we actually came back, and Baptist Mission said, why don't you come to our candidate seminar, and we can talk more about it. And we said, okay. What we didn't realize is we were probably the first people in the history of BMM that went to candidate seminar not knowing if you were going to be a missionary or not. Everybody else knew they were going to be missionaries, and everybody looked at us like, what? Why are you here? But it worked out, and we talked with them, we talked with our church, and decided to become full-time missionaries. And our church was excited. In fact, we went back to them, and they said, we were waiting for you to realize it. We knew it, but we wanted you to realize it. And so in 2018, we left for Tokyo, and we called our first term our foundation term, or Dodai, which that's actually sideways. But part of our foundation was we knew we needed to study the language more. We'd started, but we needed more. The culture is another thing we wanted to learn more deeply. Churches and relationships, foundation to missions and church life.
So our first step was to find a language school, and we found one that was in downtown Tokyo, about an hour and a half from where we lived, by train and walking. And our school was really neat because it was run by people who are Christians, and they wanted us to learn not only how to speak Japanese, but how to communicate truths about what we believe and to do it in a way that was culturally appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And we also wanted to learn the culture. And part of that was through the school. The school took us on field trips that we were able to go and experience a tea ceremony or whatever other things that they thought you need to know this about Japanese culture. We also like to go places on days off where Japanese people also went. So it may be aquariums or just beautiful places around Japan. Our kids love getting involved. At school, they were learning about Japanese holidays and Japanese history and just important events in the community. It was great. We also loved the food, especially eating it with other people. But as we would go around Tokyo, we saw the crowds. And one important thing we learned is not only how to ride crowded trains during rush hour, but how to avoid them. At least the best we could. But as we would see the crowds around Tokyo, we kept one thing in mind, and that is, in this picture, statistically, there is not one Christian. And yes, we did count the heads. There are less than 333 people in this picture. It's humbling to walk around and know that the biggest crowds you see might have a handful of Christians only, according to statistics.
We served at a church called Megumi, or Grace Baptist Church. And one special thing about our church was that there really weren't people who were confident in their English speaking ability. So that really forced us to learn Japanese and to use it. We're thankful for the ways that their kindness that they showed to us and how they welcomed us into their family. At first, we weren't really able to be very involved because we didn't speak Japanese, but we were able to do things like music ministry, and Andrew had some English services for them.
Mm-hmm. I also had the chance to preach 3 times in Japanese, and that was one of the most humbling things that I think I've done in a long time. I don't usually have a manuscript, and in Japanese, I had to pretty much have my head down reading it. It didn't feel like preaching, but I'm thankful that God can use that, and it's just steps along the way. And we're thankful for how God brought our Japanese ability. We also experienced difficulties with COVID, as you also, I'm sure, experienced. And we actually had some neat opportunities. One of the members of our church wrote the pamphlet you see there on the left. And it's kind of like a longer track that, are you feeling depression? Are you feeling anxiety with all this? There's a God who wants to help you. And just shared the gospel through it. And our church worked together to deliver somewhere between 20 and 30,000 of those to our surrounding area. And so we were just excited to see the church at work.
We also were on the lookout for relationships. And at first, this was really hard because in Japan, a lot of relationships are based on your context. So it wasn't really until Jonah joined school that we had a context for relationships. And suddenly, we would go to the park, people would say hi to us, and we could join their conversations, where before they might say hi and ask, why are you in Japan? But that was the end of the conversation. So we're really thankful for Jonah's willingness to go to school. It was really hard for him because his school was only in Japanese, and he didn't really speak a lot of Japanese, and he ate Japanese food for lunch, and he did really well with that, learning to make friends, and we were thankful for that.
We were. In fact, parks played a really big part in our life and ministry, because after COVID, a lot of the events and a lot of things shut down, and so we had a lot of time at home. And we had a 600 square foot apartment, and for some reason our kids needed this thing called exercise. Well, our apartment didn't really give them room for that, so we went to the park, and every other parent had the same idea. And so we were able to connect with a lot of parents there and let our kids play, and we could talk. And it was fun to see that as our kids grew closer, so did the parents. As we talk about God's work through us, we also want to talk about just God's work in us. We don't want to paint this rosy picture that's unrealistic. Moving to Japan was one of the hardest things that we've ever done. Picking up our family, going to a country where we at best could get ourselves out and into trouble with Japanese. We had a long ways to go. It was hard, and there were times where we were borderline ready to give up, starting to question, God, do you really want us here? And it was at that point, every time, that God would send somebody to send an email or a letter in the mail, or even we would have somebody at church come up to us and be like, I've been able to understand you better lately. Thank you for your hard work in studying, which really was a compliment. We were thankful, because there were times where we're like, I don't think they get it. We're not. But we were just thankful for God's faithfulness through it and how he took care of us. And when we needed it, he encouraged us.
We're also thankful for the kids' willingness to work with us and to do the hard things like go to school in Japanese. And Jonah started in 4-year-old preschool and went through first grade. So he's learned how to read and write at a first grade level in Japanese, which is hard. And just the willingness of the teachers to work with us and be flexible, because I really probably wasn't the best one to, they give me lots of papers and to read. I don't know how many days I showed up and said, oh, today's a gym clothes day. Let me go back and get his gym clothes. Or today's a library day. I didn't bring his library book. It took a while to get into the rhythm and realize that there was a pattern. And all of those things meant things on the page. And I had one mom there who was really patient with me. The first day that I walked into the school, she saw me and she said, oh, I lived in America for 8 months and I want to help you. I know how hard it is. And so she would highlight the pages for me and say, this is important, you need to read this. And she just took care of so many things. And as I got to know her, I realized that God is chasing her. When she was in America, all of her friends were Christians. And when she moved back to Japan, first she enrolled her son in an English-speaking preschool, and that school closed down so that her son and Jonah started school at the same time in Japan as second-year preschoolers, so that I think God worked it all out so that we could meet, so that I could interact with her, and so that she could help me during those years.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that happened is in 2019, Janae's father had been diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And it's one of those kind of nightmarish things. You're on the other side of the world and you can't be there. And it's one of those things that if you sit here and think about, you're like, how could we do this? But there's that verse that talks about how God gives peace that passes all understanding. And I'm not going to claim that we are experts in it now, but we definitely have felt that. Just being on the other side of the world and the peace that God could give, and how he just worked out all the details that we could make it back for the funeral and have extra time, and just, he's good and he takes care of us. And we're thankful that we get to serve him. As we go back for our second term, we want to focus on the language. Again, we're not going to do language school other than maybe a little brush up, but we want to study through use, get involved in the church more, get involved in the community as well.
say it takes about 10 years to be comfortable in Japanese. So we've got a long ways to go, but we're working on it. We also want to be involved in our community, learn more about the culture, and just get involved locally.
Mm-hmm. Especially with other churches. We'd like to know churches around us and in the greater area of Tokyo. We are going back to Megumi Baptist Church. We want to help Pastor Yuasa however we can, and we want to work with English ministries. That's not our main focus, but God has given us the ability to speak English, and that is highly desired among the Japanese people. They want to learn from native speakers, and so we want to use that for the sake of the gospel. And I'd like to point out, too, that everybody we've talked to today, I've noticed you also speak English. And so if you ever want to put that ability that God has given you to use, I could help you with that.
We also plan to continue to develop relationships. I continue messaging moms from school and from the other ladies from church. We want to open up our home more, especially as hopefully COVID is settling down there. Mm-hmm. We want to continue attending school with the kids. We're planning to homeschool Jonah from now on, but Isla will go back to school and Josiah will join school when he's old enough.
Mm-hmm. As we think about relationships, there was one, the family that Janae was talking about earlier, the mom that wanted to help her. A few months later, she said, our older son is going to be part of a sports day. Would you like to come and see it at a different school? And we said, well, sure, let's go. And so we went. And this is a big neighborhood event. You invite grandparents. You invite every relative you've got. You invite neighbors. Everybody comes. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and make a terrific picnic lunch. It's a huge event. And so we got to take part in it, and we enjoyed that. And the best part was we then got to get to know the rest of the family, including the husband. And then it was a few months after that we got invited to Christmas.
She said, I know that Christmas is a really big deal for Americans, and you're away from your family. How about you just come over? We'll have a little Christmas party. And so she prepared the traditional American Christmas dinner of chicken, because KFC has promoted this. KFC says that Americans eat KFC on Christmas Day. That you can't have Christmas without KFC. So we had chicken and Christmas cake, and we got to share a little bit about what Christmas is for us and how we celebrate Jesus being born.
And so we were building this relationship and starting to do more and more with it. And then COVID happened. And God, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? He worked in a place where he had to be really careful with protocol. And so he couldn't go out to eat he couldn't go out to eat. We couldn't go over to his house. They couldn't come over to our house. It was really hard. But he could go to parks. So our families every Sunday afternoon got together, and eventually other families too joined us, and our kids would play and we would talk. And that led to some interesting opportunities.
One day we were playing at the park, and we look across the field and we see another foreigner, a Western-looking person, and we thought, I've never seen him around town before. And so being the bold missionaries that we are, we turned to our kids and said, hey, look, some new kids, go say hi. And with a little bit of coaxing, they went over to check out, see if these new kids spoke English.
And so after they went over, I went over and introduced myself, and his name was Christian, and he was an American. And I asked him, so what are you in Japan for? What are you doing? I teach at a local university. Oh, what do you teach? I teach Japanese literature. Oh, okay. But I also teach religion. I can talk about that. And so we start talking, and he's an Eastern Orthodox sect that I had never heard of before, and so that was really interesting. But while we're talking, my Japanese friend comes over, and he's fluent in English, and he starts listening. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I have to make sure that I'm using words my friend is going to understand. He's not Christian. I don't think he's studied any Christian lingo, so I'm trying to to use language he would easily understand. And Christian and I talked for about 20 minutes, and then he had to leave. And so he said goodbye. I've never seen him again. I hope to meet him again, but I haven't. And so my friend and I are turning, and we leave. And I said, so how much of that did you understand? A lot of it. Okay. Do you have any questions? Well, and that started a 20-minute conversation about the difference in churches. He didn't realize that there wasn't just one Christian church or a couple Christian churches, that there's lots of differences. And the thing is, you can't talk about the difference in churches without talking about the gospel. And so it's a great opportunity, at least intellectually, to talk about the gospel. The family seems interested in English and somewhat intellectually about Christianity, but not in the heart yet. But we just keep praying for them and keeping up with them. We have a few prayer requests that we would like to share with you that you could be praying for. First one is wisdom for housing location. 600 square foot apartment was not going to cut it with a family of 5 and some of the ministry things we wanted to do. So we're looking for the right house in the right place with the right neighbors that God wants us to have. And so if you could just be praying for that for us.
We also have other partners in ministry with Baptist Missions. We have senior missionaries who are retiring, and one senior missionary just passed away this year, and taking over the leadership from them has a lot of things to do, so we need wisdom with that.
On top of that, BMM headquarters is right now in Fukushima, which you may recognize from the tsunami radiation up in that area. None of our one missionary, the widow of the person who passed away, is up there now. The rest of us are all down in the Tokyo area, or one person's in another part. We'd like to move the headquarters down, but that requires land and a building that we own so that it can become the new headquarters. So we're in the beginning process of just working through what that looks like and how we can do it, but we would love your prayers for that wisdom and just God to supply as when we get to the point of needing the finances and things to do that.
And then we have a long way to go with language. In order to really minister to people, we need to be able to speak to people. So please pray for us as we continue to study and learn to speak fluently.
I have one more prayer request, but I will actually let Jesus tell you this one. In Luke 10, Jesus says, "Then he," Jesus, "said to them, 'The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest.'" I find this passage fascinating. In Luke chapter 9, we've just gotten to the point of really Jesus calls the 12, the apostles that will become famous. He's grouped them together and he sends them out. And they do their ministry. And then when they come back, they're excited. And God shows them lots of things. This is where the transfiguration takes place, where Jesus is shown in his glory on the mount. And 3 of the disciples see that. Jesus feeds the 5,000. There are many things that take place in chapter 9. But there's also some hard parts. This is where, in the book of Luke, Jesus starts saying, "I'm going to go and I'm going to die." And the disciples don't know what to do with this. Then at the end of Luke 9, this is the part where people start coming to Jesus and saying, "I want to follow you." And Jesus tells one, "Well, there won't be any place to sleep." And another one wants to follow, and he says, "Go and bury your father." Or he says he wants to bury his father first, and he says, "No, you can't do that. You just need to follow." And so it gets to this point in chapter 9, at the end of chapter 9, we're like, well, the 12 were sent out. Are they the only ones that can follow? God does all these great things, but look how hard it is. Look at the cost. And then we hit chapter 10. And Jesus is sending out now either the 70 or 72. There's a little debate on what number it is, but a larger group. We're looking at 5 times the number, the original plus 5 times. It's a bigger group being sent out. And so Jesus is giving this little speech, sermonette to them as he's sending them out. And later, he says how hard it's going to be, how difficult. You're not going to take anything with you. You are going to rely on the people around you. And there are going to be people that will not let you stay. You're going to be thrown out. And as I sit there and think, I'm wondering, what would I start that out with? And it would be an encouragement. It would be something that I wanted them to keep going with. And what does Jesus choose? This verse. He's talking to them. Because of them is this group, the 72. And he tells them to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. Now, if I were telling somebody to pray, it would be pray that God will supply your needs. You're going out with nothing, so ask him to supply. That's faith. I would say pray for the people you're ministering to, that they would change, their hearts would be changed, that they would accept the message. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. We're supposed to pray a request to God, and those are good things to pray for. But what Jesus says is pray that the Lord of the harvest send out laborers into his harvest. We've just went from 12 to 72, and Jesus is saying, look, pray for more. And I found that is something that I've neglected a lot in my life, praying for more people to be sent out. I'm also encouraged by this because it is his harvest. I think sometimes we think too much about our harvest for God, but it's our harvest. And I'm thankful that he is the one responsible. We are just working for him. I'm also thankful that there is a harvest. It doesn't say, pray the Lord of the harvest that he'll send out laborers if there is a harvest. He assures us there is. There is a harvest that is ready, and we need the laborers to go out. I stand before you as a missionary sent to Japan. I don't think anybody will be surprised when I say, we need more missionaries. If you are interested in coming to Japan, I'd love to talk to you. Please come find us. If you're interested in missions in general, we'd still love to talk to you. We love talking to people who are going to missions. We have lots of friends who are all over the world. We can help you connect. But I'm also not naive enough to think that it's only about Japan. Because America needs laborers as well. Please pray for laborers. I will admit there's a little bit of selfishness in this request too. Because I know that if people are laboring here in America, and by that I don't just mean full-time ministry. We need more full-time ministry workers. We do. There's plenty of churches that need a pastor, that need people that can serve full-time. But I'm also meaning people who are willing to labor in God's behalf where he has put them. At work, with friends, in your neighborhood. We need laborers who are willing to share about God and how wonderful he is and what he's done in their lives with those around them. As people do that here in America, I know the church will grow. And as the church grows, more people can be called to be missionaries. And Lord willing, in time, we will have more missionaries coming to Japan. I want to see a healthy church in America. I want to see a healthy church in Japan and all over the globe. Please pray for laborers. There is one warning. If you are praying that God will send out laborers, it is very likely that God will call you or your children or your grandchildren to serve him. That may be here in Decatur. That may be in Illinois. It may be across the states. It may be in a country like Japan. But I know in my life, I've already seen that when I submit to God and do what he wants, there is nothing better. It's not always the easiest. Sometimes God asks us to do hard things, but it is worth it. Pray for laborers, and if he calls you, be willing to go. Here is our contact information. Feel free to contact us if you've got questions about what I've talked about. Feel free to contact us if you want to know what it's like in Japan. We answer those emails too. We would love to keep in contact with you. On the back table that we set up, there's a sign-up sheet for our prayer letter. We send out monthly, and we do our best to keep it to one page. We know your time's valuable, so we'd like you to be able to read it. We want to keep in contact with you so you know how to pray for us and how we know how to pray for you all. Thank you for your support, not only in just finances, but in so many other ways as well. We appreciate you and are so glad that you have partnered with us to minister in Japan. Thank you for that.
We serve a good God. Amen. Sherry and I are obviously rejoicing so much about the news that we shared with you and just the goodness that God has shown us through this whole experience. And I'm sure that everybody in here can recount some ways, many ways probably, in which God has been good to you. So as we recount those ways, as we praise God just for his goodness, celebrate him and praise him, I want to invite you guys to stand, and we're going to sing Goodness of God. Now may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and gave us eternal comfort and good hope through grace, comfort your hearts and establish them in every good work and word. Happy Father's Day, and you are dismissed, church.